Hello everyone, I'm Silent Death and welcome back to my Let's Play Space Engineer series. Before we get started today, I wanted to mention I made some changes to the rules in the cargo ship design contest. Basically you can make reasonable changes to what I've said before. I tried designing my own ship and found it a little bit difficult. And if you're not designing a ship, you should be. It's only a small ship, given the rules. It shouldn't take very long. It's based off the smallest of the military and mining ships. I think that's the military escort and mining carrier ships. So something about that size. And it'll be a chance for you to get your own ships inside of a mod that you can use in your own world. But today, like I said at the end of last episode, I want to start on designing a new mining ship. And with the most recent patch, we've gotten large mining drills, which is quite nice. We also can change our appearance in the med bay, which is back inside the asteroid, so we're not going to go do that. Oh yeah, and they reverted the netcode to the old version, which has got to be a little bit embarrassing to have to do undo on one of your patches, but I understand there are a lot of complaints on that. And I forget anything else they may have added. That may be the big things anyway. One of the benefits of the merge blocks is that we can now design ships to be modular or design ships in pieces. That was a problem with designing our second generation miner, is that any changes we made had to be stripped through the armor and then rebuilt into it. And also with our Star Fury design, we couldn't test the pieces individually. So for this generation of mining ship, I'm going to be designing functions that I want to have inside of the ship, and then we'll later merge those all into a big, complete, awesome ship. In this episode, we're going to focus on something that I had been planning even before the merge blocks, but I think the merge blocks are going to make it even better. If you recall, the episode after I designed this ship, I came back and we added this bottom skirt onto it because the landing gear were getting snapped off. Unfortunately, the landing gear still have a tendency to get snapped off, and I have to rebuild them rather frequently. So what we're going to work on designing this episode is various forms of retractable landing gear. And ideally with the merge blocks, it'll be landing gear that retracts and then can connect to a merge block so that we can actually control it. I have a few ideas on how to do that, including the way I was going to do before the merge blocks. And let's see, what do I want to start with? So let me kind of enumerate the ways. The first way before, let me have this ship as an example to poke at or point at. So obviously we cannot just have the landing gear connected to a rotor without the merge blocks, because that way we wouldn't be able to activate the landing gear from the cockpit. So instead, what I was thinking is we could have the whole bottom layer be the thing that's connected to a piston so that it could raise and lower. That would be option one. Another option is to, of course, now with the merge blocks, have the landing gear themselves lower. And how we do that is kind of split into two ways. One, we can use a straight up piston, which, you know, 3 rotors, or well, 4 rotors, but basically like we built last episode, where we combine the Oh, I cannot say the word. You combine the circular motion, autosave, of the rotors into an up and down motion so that the landing gear goes straight out. That is convenient in that it leaves, oh crap, have that off, as little opening in the bottom hole as possible for the landing gear to go through. Though we do have to be careful with the large landing gear, because unlike the small landing gear, you can place blocks. Let's see. Like right here, I think. Yeah, I think I'm just out of stuff. Let me go get some steel plates. I'm going to need those anyway. And try not to burn myself to death with the welders. There we go. I think you can attach a block there. I might be wrong. Of course, it might be because of something else. I thought you could attach a block there. That is something we'll have to check. Do you have... yeah, okay. So I guess that might not be as hard as I thought it was going to be. But that's the first option, is to have the straight up and down motion. The second option is to, using fewer rotors, have them almost fold up. Just go, well, I guess they would go further, wouldn't they? You'd basically just have two rotors in a U shape so they line up, and then you would have the piston fold up like that and come back down. Fold up like that. And we could extend that design. Instead of having the piston just fold up, we could have it rotate all the way around 180 degrees, and on the bottom we could put more armor so that the gap in the armor closes. Of course, that would take a fair amount of room, though it should be, I think, less than the straight up and down motion would be. And of course it would also add the armor thing, though with a proper piston thing we could have it so that the foot holds up this entrance. That may or may not be ideal. Continuing, or the main reason that we want to replace the, or have retractable landing gear, is because the landing gear themselves are so fragile compared to heavy armor. So that would probably not be the best way for a binding ship, though for certain other types of ships that might be good. And of course we want the landing gear for this type of ship just to keep them from snapping off, but you may want them for other things. For instance, if we adjust the rotor torque on the landing gear mechanism, we can have kind of a shock absorber, which is great for people who have problems with ships and moving objects and stationary objects coming in close proximity to each other, not to name any names. And for, say, combat, if you had a fighter that's coming in for a fast landing on a carrier, or also a type of drop ship that might need to land on a enemy ship, you would need to land pretty fast. So having shock absorbers to keep your landing gear from snapping off would be quite beneficial. It would also increase the amount of time you have to lock your landing gear. Which brings us to one of the design considerations for our landing gear, is it needs to be tough enough to absorb the shock from a ship when it hits. Which, given the ship's going to be largely heavy armor, that's not going to be insignificant. And I think I've already mentioned that I wanted to have the armor itself move instead of landing gear. But that might be all of them. All the ones that I can think of right off the bat. I think we'll start... Oh, another autosave. I must have been talking too long. I think we'll start with the straight up rotating one. And see how much room that takes. Yes, that's what we'll do. I'm going to design this as a station. And then later we can convert it to a ship and then stick on merge blocks and all that fancy stuff. But first I will just build out a hole with a gap, and I will be right back with probably something sort of working designed. Okay, we have this version. It is not that great. There's a lot of collisions. It has to be moving very fast not to get stuck. And the collisions, well, they cause a lot of damage to the blocks. Enough to apparently break it off. Not to mention the fact that the primary feature that I liked about this closing arm doesn't completely cover the area. And of course there is a lot of area to cover. But the gap's not going to be significantly better than the other versions. So I think that pretty much kills this design, though I guess technically it killed itself. But we'll blame the other features just so it can save a little bit of face. Next up, we will try one of the piston designs. And I will again be right back. Okay, this is the piston retractable landing gear version. This is kind of the most compact version I could really come up with, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks, counting the outside armor, by 7, by 2, 3, 4, 5 and probably a fraction in the upper part, which isn't terrible. You know, a couple of large cargo containers, though it does have to be in this orientation relative to the ship. Not great for a mining ship, but not the worst thing ever. And right now, we have the merge blocks. You can see they connect so that we can actually access the landing gear. And we should be able to turn them off. And reverse the rotor. Or I may have to... Okay, they're off. The rotor is reversed. What do you need to do? Did something get turned to something that is not movable? That's okay. Do I need to move these? Are they in the way? Might be the problem. It's hard to tell. Make it unlimited. Okay, so something is not what it's supposed to be. put that there and see if it's you. Thinking something might have got converted to a station, because this was a station before, and it might still think it's a station or something like that. That's one guess. So let's see, we'll have to connect to this too somehow. That would work. Where's the blue SCV? There you are. They did add these little bands around the borders. I think that's new. So let's see if it's this one first. We'll check this one. And I don't know how we're going to check the landing gear. Other than, I don't know, deconstructing it maybe? So it is a ship, I guess? Still thinks it's a ship? You still think you're a ship? Maybe something here? You need some kind of panel that I can access. I can see what's going on. I'll be right back. I figured out the problem. I did not have any power after I disconnected from the station. Minor problem. So this does work fairly okay. It's a little... I don't know. Let's see. I think if we put these back, it should be okay. Due to the lack of side supports, you need a larger gap here, because this bounces around a little bit, like that. And I'm not even sure how well it would do with side supports, given the way the merge block has to be. Though I imagine you could build a bigger one and stabilize this for larger ships, but for the mining ship we're going to build, we need something really, really tiny. That means we're probably going to end up leaving a larger gap. We could also try the armor one, but I do not think that's going to be a particularly good idea for a large ship. Mostly due to the gap that we would have to leave in the armor would have to be travel distance of this, because this is as small as we can make it. And that's 3 blocks. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 3 blocks. And I don't think we could have a piston that could lift that much heavy armor. At least not well. It would be really, really difficult. And it'd probably break a lot. Even this might break a little bit. This part is going to be a problem. I may just break down and make it a little bit bigger. We're going to have to see how big the final ship design is. I mean, we can always add more drills to our ship. It just depends on what kind of mining ship we want to build. Do we want to build a tunneling mining ship, or do we want to build a kind of strip miner mining ship? Or do we want to build both? But this is the general concept for retractable landing gear that we're going to probably stick with until we come up with something better. Obviously this needs to be a beefier block, and a whole bunch of other stuff needs to happen to improve this for the final version. Next time, I think we'll look at... Actually, let me see how much time we have left on this episode. No, we don't have time for this episode. Next time, we will probably look at various mining drill layouts and different ways we could possibly arrange the mining drills to have more mining. Not just more mining, but more efficient mining. Specifically, based on what I've read on the forums, I have not tried that out myself. But unlike with the small mining drills, the large mining drills don't drill an extra space around them, which means there's not going to be any view forward, and that's not something I like. I would like to try to come up with a mining drill layout that would allow me to have a view forward, or a ship design that would allow me to have a view forward without having to be in third person view the entire time, because that does not work well when you're digging through tunnels or when you're mining in general. And then there's just some basic efficiency things we might want to consider. But that is going to be it for this episode. Like if you like. Subscribe if you're not. Leave a comment if you have anything to say. I do read all the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time!